handcuffed and taken to a holding facility. That's how a recent school day ended for an 11-year-old girl in Adams County. Her mother called 9 Wants to Know, claiming the punishment for being disrespectful went too far. Will Ripley spoke to the school district, and they looked into the incident. Will?
Kim, it is all laid out in this report from the Adams County Sheriff's Office. A sixth grader basically didn't follow orders, was pretty rude, and she ended up in handcuffs. Well, tonight, we're hearing what happened to her could be a lesson for others.
Confused and scared.
Kids who cop an attitude at school might want to think twice.
Because why would they handcuff me?
Yahaira Quesada is 11 years old, a sixth grader at Shaw Heights Middle School.
I'm not the type of girl to get arrested.
This incident report says Yahaira was in the hallway without permission and was argumentative and extremely rude to an assistant principal.
She told me that I need to quit giving her my attitude.
When intervention efforts with a counselor failed, Yahaira was put in a patrol car and taken to a juvenile holding facility called The Link. The Adams County Sheriff's Office says handcuffing kids during transport is standard procedure.
Criminals. They're treating them like criminals. And they're not. They're kids.
Mireya Gaitan doesn't condone her daughter's behavior, but she questions the severity of the punishment and the handcuff marks left on Yahaira's hands.
It's not a pretty picture. Not at all.
You hate to see something escalate to where it becomes a police matter. Once they step in and take over a case, it's really in their hands.
Steve Saunders with Adams County School District 50 says anytime an incident rises to this level, officials take a close look at what happened.
The conclusion was that as far as the district was concerned, everything was handled appropriately.
Gaitan moved both her daughters to a new school.
I am blaming myself.
Yahaira now knows what not to do when talking to a teacher.
Not to give them attitude.
The Adams County Sheriff's Office told us they could not talk about this incident because there's a minor involved and there were no charges filed. Now, this report says that Yahaira was never violent, but she was disobedient and disrespectful. We're having a heated debate right now on our 9 News Facebook.
I don't have any proof of my theories.
What's your theory?
Because sometimes we get thousands of people like this, and we'll take them to the polling booth, and we won't win the caucus. So, a lot of our supporters are very suspicious about it. But the straw votes have been very confusing. I mean, you've probably read in the paper about what happened up in Maine. I mean, there's just a lot of confusion. They said, well, let's have a recount. They said, well, we can't have a recount. They just write these numbers down on pieces of paper and we throw them away afterwards. So it's that kind of stuff that makes you suspicious.
Hello everyone, welcome to Global Government News. Today is Monday, March 12th, 2012, and I'm Darko. My website is ggnonline.com, and ddarko2012 is my YouTube channel. Okay, I have this first article up. I'll just go briefly through the politics part, just because it's worth mentioning as far as Ron Paul and Dennis Kucinich go. Ron Paul's pointless internet presidency. So I saw this come across the headlines and just kind of, shake my head, because this is what it is. This is what you're going to get in the mainstream media. Ron Paul has about as many votes in this year's GOP primaries as he has Facebook fans. It says here, is his fierce online following that much less relevant than it appears? So the guy has most support out of most veterans. He has the biggest online support, the most grassroots mobilized support, bigger crowds, and yet somehow he's losing. So it just goes to show you that most of these elections are rigged. But maybe they're not. Maybe there's just pure democracy or pure politics at its finest being taking place. Or my other theory is maybe if it is like that, it's because most baby boomers are not going to vote for Ron Paul, unfortunately. They're going to vote for Mitt Romney or Obama again. A lot of them are probably going to re-elect Obama. And then you have these elderly people. They may actually agree with a lot of things that Ron Paul says, but they'll still think that he's a kook because they trust the mainstream media, like the baby boomers, so that they'll actually won't vote because they'll be like, oh, well, I was going to vote, but I was going to vote for John McCain and he's not running, so I guess I won't vote. And then you have like mostly younger people that are for Ron Paul, which make up less people, a smaller group than the baby boomers and the elderly But really, what's going on here, I don't see a Republican candidate being president, and later on, you're going to see how they're going to blame Ron Paul for, oh, if Ron Paul didn't run, Mitt Romney could have won, or Gingrich, or one of those douchebags, so they'll just end up blaming it on the Ron Paul, which is he's basically a third-party candidate. Like they did to other candidates in the past, like Ross Perot and who is it, Bob Dole, or not even third-party candidates, but just other candidates. They just now Ralph Nader. They just tend to like play that game. And then, of course, you saw this video right here where they were saying you better get used to it. And what did the girl say? Oh, her lesson is that she's not going to speak up, right? So it's kind of unfortunate, but it's fortunate that I don't have children because I couldn't send them to these schools. I would try to homeschool them as best as I could, but yeah, I mean, it's bad. It's terrible. I mean, schools are literally, they're indoctrinating you into a system where they tell you it's democratic and it's free, when it's not democratic, it's not free. You can't just become the president if you want. If you do and you start to speak your mind, you'll get killed. And they don't teach you that. They tell you that all the rewritten history, and you're supposed to eat it up. And most students just kind of turn their heads and they don't even listen to the crap because it's all stupid garbage anyways, right? But this is the thing. If you reject that programming, like I did that in high school, all through grammar school, basically B average. Probably could have been A, but I was just not as interested, so I got a B average mostly. Then high school, I graduated with a 1.7 GPA. Why? Because I didn't give a fuck. I realized that it was all just bullshit, And then I went in the Marine Corps, and see, that was part of the program. We reject away from that and go in and serve the military-industrial complex, then get out. Then I got my college degree, and I graduated like a 3.4. Why? Because the first 2 years I cared, and then by the 2 years I realized it was all bullshit. And by the last days before I got my degree, I was literally in the back row of my journalism class banging my head on the fucking table because I was so frustrated with what I was seeing, and there's no one to really talk to about it, right? Nearly 2 million dead people listed on U.S. electoral rolls. That's right. Then moving on here. Dennis Kucinich loses Ohio congressional primary due to Marcy Kaptur. When I was buying into that whole politics game still, screaming at the TV while I was watching the debates back in 2000, or early 2008 during the primaries, I liked Ron Paul and I liked Dennis Kucinich because I kind of felt like they were real. They said in a concession speech just past midnight, a bitter Kucinich described her campaign as, quote, lacking integrity and filled with false truths. I hope this is not representation of how she'll run the district, end quote. That's the guy that lived in his car and took on like the local monopoly of the power companies. So. But it says here, Obama orders military to prepare for spring food riots. Remember this from January 2011, a grim report prepared by France's General Directorate for External Security, obtained by Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service, states that President Obama and Sarkozy have agreed in principle to create a joint U.S.-European military force to deal exclusively with global uprisings expected this spring as our world runs out of food. Now, it didn't happen last spring, and so far, I mean, we haven't really gotten to spring, but it hasn't happened yet. But just wait. Just wait. I mean, the G8 that was supposed to take place in Chicago has actually been moved because they're worried about the protests getting violent, right? Demand for survival services rises in U.S. cities. By Reuters, many cities across the U.S. are still scrambling to help their residents overcome the economic recession that officially ended more than 2 years ago. Well, they're telling people... That's so funny. It officially ended. That's right. They're telling people that it's over. According to a survey released on Friday by the National League of Cities, the demand for these services, such as food banks and housing shelters, increased 31% of cities over the last 6 months. Meanwhile, residential property values have declined in more than a third of cities, and commercial property values have dropped almost 30%. And if the Federal Reserve's basically issuing of money and charging us to use it doesn't cause prices to rise for food. Monsanto, the agri giant, Roundup threatens stability of global food supply. The reckless disregard for public health and agricultural stability of the planet may be even more significant than previously thought. Shocking new report reveals how Monsanto's Roundup is actually threatening the crop yielding potential of the entire biosphere. It reveals that this glyphosate, which was developed by the company in the early 70s and is active ingredient in the herbicide Roundup, may irreversibly devastate the microdiversity of soil, compromising the health of the entire planet. Of course, you have the GMO plants and the GMO seeds that spray into non-GMO fields, contaminating as well. And there's farmers that are suing these companies for that too. Ex-London police chief warns of massive unrest. Says here, Britain's former head of Metropolitan Police Service has warned of a repeat of unprecedented unrest in the country of August 2011 if the media failed to justify the British police's indiscriminate killing. Again, more BS. The stock market has recovered, but U.S. still down 6 million jobs. That's right. Moving on here, GE's Immelt, global economy, a new era of instability. In other words, we're in the era of constant instability, where they're constantly going to be telling you that everything's all right, while majority of people's wealth, standard of living go down. But they're always going to be telling you, oh, we gotta get a bailout, we gotta do this to save it, we gotta do this to save it, and it'll just keep going and going and going. It says here, January trade gap widens as imports hit record high. So imports have hit a record high in the United States. Then we have, moving on, half of young black men are unemployed. More than half of young black men wanting to work are unemployed and are twice as likely to be jobless as their white counterparts. Then we have New York law schools inflate job figures, say critics of local law schools say that Columbia and New York University has overpromised the economic benefit of a degree, inflating the number of students who find employment after graduation and how much of those jobs pay. It's funny that someone actually just left a comment, I don't know if it was a troll or what, on my first video about Iran and that, saying, you know, you should get a PhD in poli-sci before you voice your opinion. I thought that was kind of funny. Wells Fargo rolls out more $7 checking accounts. So far, they'll start charging $7 a month for checking accounts in 6 more states. Like I said, they should be paying you to store your money in there so they can loan it out and make money. You don't see a damn dime. Germany fails to meet its own austerity goals. So I'm going to keep moving here, but they failed to meet their goals. We have this black swan no one is talking about, Germany's Plan B. So while the second Greek bailout may or may not be complete, Germany can and will walk from the euro if it needs to. Zero Hedge says this is the unforeseen black swan everyone is ignoring. Then we have this, Moody's Greek sovereign debt rating remains at C. So it basically goes on and says that the service says that it considers Greece to have defaulted per Moody's default definition. New York Times CEO exit compensation package tops $23 million. And it goes on and says, it is more than the company has earned in the past 4 years. CEO's golden parachute exit packages pass $100 million. The golden parachute is evolving into a platinum kiss. So you can go in there and check this out. The top 100 CEOs pay, and look at where the CEO is right around. They're around News Corp, making $22 million. Yeah, propaganda. You know. As long as you're putting out really, really good propaganda that helps the establishment, you're going to get compensated well. And look at who's number one, Viacom. But be careful if you decide to work for Mr. Murdoch. 2 senior journalists at News International in apparent suicide attempts following their arrest. Then we have this, Robert Reich, the extra dollars you're paying at the pump are going to Wall Street speculators. Reich is a former U.S. Secretary of more gasoline price propaganda from Yahoo. We can live with $4 gas. Economist sees hope for U.S. amid global slowing. Then, can I afford a baby? There's no denying that babies are cute, but they can be quite expensive. So, maybe 100 years ago, you had your own land, you actually owned your own land, your own house. raising kids weren't that big of a deal. You could have 10, 15 of them. But they also didn't give their kids this crappy formula or these plastic diapers. No, they made their own, and they didn't have daycare because the parents and mothers were home. And the comments are bashing it, saying they only cost them $3,500. You can shop at thrift stores if you need to. They would never go back on having kids, even one that was unplanned, saying it's impossible to put a dollar value on love. But you can write a bill that allows for sterilizations for your children without parental consent at any age in Australia. Then the Feeling Racist blood pressure pill may open hearts and minds. So funny, because the elites, they're the most racist bastards on this planet, and they're the ones promoting this tolerance. I'm talking about the experts, of course. Then we have children at risk of descending into a life of crime and aggression should be sent to discipline institutes at age 5 and identified by age 2, says what? Ooh, the discipline experts. But how come the experts never have a problem with girls as young as 8 wearing nude bikinis for a dance contest? Thank you.